Previously on Kawaii-Fi Quest.
Are you sure that's not a pigeon?
Nah.
So, I've got a dragon. You guys have got armor.
Speak for yourself. Lady's armor is mighty uncomfortable.
Kind of works on you.
And we have a quest.
I can't tell which is more ready. My spirit or my body?
Please take off the helmet, Kenny.
No.
Let's do this. So, what is a fjord?
A few hours later.
Wrong way. Wrong way!
Wait for me! This armor is heavy!
Plate armor was never intended for wizards.
Don't care! I have fallen and I can't get up.
All right, let's see if I can draw it away.
Oh, good work.
Shut up. Coco, do something.
I'm charging an attack.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm almost done with the chorus.
What about the pigeon?
Dragon! And he needs to level up a bit.
Kenny, cast a spell already.
Yes!
This might take a while.
It's over 9,000!
Configure the language logic interface for Japanese.
Kawaii-Fi.
Konnichiwa and welcome to Kawaii-Fi Radio, the podcast where we look into the world of anime and manga. I'm your host Kyle, and joining me are my co-hosts Coco and Kenny. How you doing, guys?
Very well. How's everyone else doing?
Oh, we've done things. We've been places.
We've seen films.
We have.
And they were awesome!
Oh yeah. And
Yes.
of course, we're talking about Weathering With You, the latest film by Makoto Shinkai, and oh my god, was that good!
Just a visual masterpiece, as to be expected of Makoto Shinkai, of course, but still, whoa!
Honestly, the story was great too. I really liked the story. It wasn't what I expected it would be.
No, which was quite surprising, because you think of... Well, I mean, he did that with Your Name as well, didn't he? Like,
Yeah.
you thought, oh, it's just two people switching bodies, but there's a lot more going on in there.
Yeah, and the ending is I didn't see it ending in the way it was ended.
No.
Or at least I didn't see them arriving at the end. No, I didn't see that ending
I didn't
coming.
see
I
it
had no
coming
idea
either.
what the ending was going to be, to
Yeah,
be
there
honest.
was no predicting any of that.
Now, if you're wondering what we're talking about, Weathering With You is the latest film by Makoto Shinkai. He's done films like Your Name, 5 Centimeters a Second,
Her and Her Cat.
Her and Her Cat, just to name a few.
We talked about him at length in our last episode.
And that's currently in cinemas at the moment around the world. Have a check it out if you can. But I need to direct us to something that makes me feel really sad. So we've been playing catch up on this season's Isekai animes, and we realised we haven't talked about 2 of them at all this season, and we think there might be a reason for that.
Yeah, I think there is.
Where shall we start?
We're going to start with Isekai Cheat Magician. Now, firstly, Cheat Magician, it's not bad, but it's also not good.
I mean, it's correct. They are kind of cheating.
Yeah, and it is isekai trope after isekai trope. It has done things a bit more unique than some other ones we've seen,
Oh, yeah.
but it's very much smack bang in the middle. You will get what you expect. I mean, admittedly, it is helped by that. You've got Amasaki Kohai, who's voicing the main character, Nishimura Taichi, and you're expected overpowered high schooler, and Takahashi Rei is voicing the main female character, Rin, and she does her best with what she's given, and she also sings the outro.
And we love Ray.
She's fantastic. However, the intro song is awful and a mess of noise.
I've
It's
never
like a cacophony.
I've never actually experienced my ears vomiting, so that was a new experience.
That's a new thing.
It's different.
As far as the story goes, it's we've seen all this kind of thing before, but I don't know, it's still comfortable.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If you've never seen a isekai before, it'd be good.
Oh yeah.
Which episode was it that we just watched?
6.
Okay, so
So we didn't get a Hot Springs episode.
No, they still have maybe 1 episode of leeway to give us a Hot Springs episode, but I'm kind of over. Look, like when it started though, I was looking forward to it because I actually liked. I mean, we've all seen the tropes before. We've all seen how this can sort of start But I was enjoying it because these 2 protagonists have a different a little bit of a different relationship. They're good friends.
Yeah.
And for one thing, this is like one of the first male protagonists in a long time who isn't shut-in, isn't a hikikomori. He's like an academic. He's smart. He's got his own flaws, but he's just kind of a regular kind of guy.
On the note of smart isekais, next season there is going to be one which will be so smart it'll get on people's nerves, and it's the 7 smartest high schoolers in the world being isekai'd. I've been reading the manga. It's actually pretty good. However,
That whole thing's
how
the time.
well it will translate into an anime with the timing restrictions they have on episodes is another matter
Could
altogether.
you repeat that title?
Oh, it's I don't remember the name.
Sounded long.
It was a very long one. I just know that it is like the 7 greatest minds No, it's hard to be genius teenager in the other world or something like that.
This does sound like fun.
Whatever happened to just short titles?
It went out the door as soon as Fate Stay Night came around. So
So, Isekai Cheat Magician is about, the 2 protagonists. They're walking down the street one day. A portal opens up.
they're in another world,
And there they go.
and they're now overpowered.
Yeah, they are massively OP.
And they wrote out the 3rd character who was the love interest for Rin.
Yes. The thing that got that sort of started making it a little bit boring for me was the fact that if we're going to have any fan service, I want humor,
Yeah.
not just pervy fan service.
Yeah.
It has to be funny.
Well, from a female perspective, yes. From
Yeah.
a male perspective, which is their target demographic for this show, which is young boys aged up to 15.
Maybe not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
But the thing
This
is
is just kind of gross, just standard appeal to them.
It's kind of there's nothing going on here
Yeah.
anymore, and it's gotten a little bit too serious. And I want it. I
You want
there-
KonoSuba.
Yeah.
Just watch KonoSuba again. Then. I'm not saying that's an excuse for it. It could be a lot bigger than it is.
It could be a
This
lot
is just
worse.
why I don't
And
like.
speaking of which,
Oh,
Demon Lord Retry.
AKA mafioso vampire magician.
okay.
I mean-
First up, this is bad.
This
is
is-
really
I
bad.
mean, we really overlooked the badness in the first
We did.
episode. I
I-
mean, we try and give these animes a go.
give 'em a
because you
chance.
gotta.
I've got a few cliche isekai tropes here, and I want you to tell me if this covers them.
Okay.
Overpowered main character who's a gamer.
Check, he's unkillable.
Is there a Lolita side character?
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Is there a Sundia sword maiden?
Oh yeah.
Is there an equally annoying sisters of said sword maiden?
A magician girl, yes.
Are there knockoff characters from every other isekai?
Oh,
and counting.
yeah.
Is there an over-endowed swordsman?
Oh, yes.
Is there female fantasy armor?
Constantly.
Is there inappropriate camera angles in bathing scenes and author's fetishes?
Oh yeah.
It's a bad fanfic.
But you know what? I really liked I liked the character of the overpowered swordsman. I thought she was cool, except for the fact that she's got massive boobs as well, so
Yeah.
we can't really take her seriously now.
Yeah, well,
Though
it's
she is
literally
still
they drew
cool.
her naked and then drew the
Yeah.
clothes on.
Oh
I mean, I
my
know that's
God.
standard, but
Guys,
Yeah.
all right, the
Yeah.
backgrounds in this anime. Oh my goodness. Just I mean, if you haven't watched it yet and you're thinking about it, just watch it and have a look at the backgrounds.
I'd also like to point out that the animation is appalling, and in
Yeah.
regards to the background, you can see they're done in a rush, but in particular, the combat feels empty. Not just because there's no sound or no impact at all, but you don't see the combat, just what happens after
Yeah,
it.
you see the after effects, and even then it looks kind of rushed. Like, have you guys watched any of those like old school action films or the knockoffs from like Turkey and Italy and all the
yeah,
other
yeah,
things
yeah.
like
great.
knockoff
Spaghetti westerns and stuff like
yeah,
that.
where they will throw a man into a wall and then it's replaced by a dummy who bounces off a mat. It feels like that during the combat.
It does. I actually was having a look on my anime list, or MAL as it's known, to see what the users thought, and I have some great stuff to show you.
Oh, really?
So, user mythologically says, in a world where we have isekais that are unironically garbage, Mao Summer is ironically garbage. This show is literally KonoSuba, except it was animated by a 2-year-old. Mao Summer is clearly self-aware of how bad it is, and it continuously references shows like Overlord, ReZero, and recently even Steins Gate. Shakbar659 says, every once in a while comes an anime so bad that should really be stopped before the season ends. Now Summer Retry is definitely that anime.
Oh, that's savage.
Someone also reviewed it completely in rhyme, but I won't do that. It's very long and questionable.
Can I say there's a saving grace, but it's not enough of a saving grace to keep me watching it? The double bass. I am a big fan
I would like
of
to
double
point
bass.
out that the music is also terrible. It sounds like generic royalty-free music that was just grabbed
does,
haphazardly.
but
It doesn't fit any
there's
of
a
the
double
scenes.
bass.
Yes.
So-
So
You're
if
a
you are
sucker for a
looking
double
to
bass.
enjoy laughing at how bad a show and how generic an anime it is, in the same way you watch Tommy Wiseau's The Room, this might be a cup of tea.
Ooh, so you would really put it up there. You would say that this is the room,
But
the room of anime.
I don't think it is the pinnacle of bad. but
Yeah,
it-
because
it's-
I actually you
it's
can
up there.
enjoy The Room.
You can enjoy The Room.
But you're saying that there could possibly be something worse.
Well, you could definitely turn it into a drinking game where you drink every time something's poorly animated, whenever generic music's used, whenever
Ooh.
cliches appear.
Like give a different task to a different drinker.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, fun.
So that's one way to do it.
You know what? I
What?
just realised the only people that can't enjoy The Room are the people who acted in it. They can just go, yeah, I did that. They can't really enjoy the fact that it was that bad,
bad.
because they've got a personal interest. So
Yeah.
my heart goes out to them.
We're
But maybe
all-
one, yeah.
We're all big fans of this movie.
Yes.
But big fans of how bad it is. All right. So this episode, much like our current opening sequence, is all about isekai. And if you ever wondered where this very Japanese genre came from, stay tuned, because we've done the digging for you and have some answers. We'll be looking at two standout examples of isekai. One captured the hearts of those unfamiliar with anime while breaking records for animated features all around the world, and the other squarely aimed at anime fans who wanted to see a more unconventional isekai story with comedy and logic. We're talking Spirited Away and KonoSuba this episode, right after the news.
Making headlines.
Really? Sort of. Anime news.
A wave of new anime films headed to our screens, and more Shield Hero is on the way. This is Kawaii-Fi Anime News. The manga reading app Manga Rock will be shutting down its services after apologising for causing problems for the manga industry. The service, founded in 2010, is one of the biggest manga aggregator sites online and was set up as a site to access fan-translated manga. A lot of pirated content had appeared on the service, including scans of official translations, and led to the CEO of Iridori Comics criticising the service last week in a series of tweets. Several days later, the studio behind the app removed it from the App Store and Google Play while issuing a formal apology. They claimed they didn't understand the manga industry or the damage they'd done to publishers and creators, and would therefore be shutting down operations. The shutdown comes only a few weeks after Manga Rock launched a paid monthly membership option, charging for additional services in the app. Two new anime films are heading to international cinema screens, with Human Lost and Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl, both seeing North American showings in October. Human Lost will be airing in North America on October 22nd and 23rd, with its full international release expected in the weeks following through to November. The new CGI sci-fi film will actually air in North America before it opens in Japan, as part of an agreement with Funimation. Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl will be showing in the US on October 2nd and 3rd, with Canadian audiences free to catch it on October 4th and 5th. The film adapts the 6th and 7th light novel volumes of the popular romance series by Seishiban Butayaro, which also has an anime series running for 13 episodes in 2018. A full international release schedule has not been announced yet, but Australian audiences will be able to catch it at Madman Anime Festival Melbourne on September 14. With two new films on the way, two others have been delayed. Kyoto Animation's film adaptation of Violet Evergarden has had its premiere date pushed back from January 10th, with the Kyo Ani staff emphasising work on the movie was continuing. The studio's side story film Eternity and Auto Memories Dolls recently opened in Japan, with its 2-week run extended to 3-week by cinema chains. Figure skating anime Yuri on Ice has announced its film Ice Adolescence has also been delayed, with the film originally slated for 2019. The movie's committee have said the delay is in order to substantially scale up the content more than originally planned, and that they would have to provide a new release date soon. The film was originally announced in 2017, following the very successful 12-episode series in 2016. Highly anticipated music anime Carol and Tuesday is now available on Netflix worldwide, with the first 12 episodes landing on the streaming service on August 30. Created by director Shinichiro Watanabe, the creator of Cowboy Bebop, the series celebrates the studio Bones' 20th anniversary and record label Flying Dog's 10th year. The show focuses on two girls who live on Mars in a future where music is created only by AI. They both wish to be musicians and use their music to wake up a world of passive consumers. The Netflix version is available with 8 different dubs and 28 subtitle languages, with the music from the show available on streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. Isekai anime, The Rising of the Shield Hero, is getting 2 more seasons with Crunchyroll on board as co-producers of the show. The series was co-produced by Crunchyroll and Catalogue, with the new seasons announced at Crunchyroll Expo 2019. While there is no confirmation on the release date for the new seasons yet, there is a new key visual for the second season featuring a giant turtle with a mountain on its back. More VR anime is on the way, with both Spice and Wolf and Teasing Master Takagi launching virtual anime projects. Game developer Spicy Tales has announced it's developing a sequel to its Spice and Wolf VR anime, which debuted in June this year. The original project launched after a successful Kickstarter campaign and could be viewed on the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, along with a non-VR version for PC. Nintendo Switch and PlayStation VR versions of the original have just launched, with only limited information on the new project's story, that there is a silver-tailed fox involved. Teasing Master Takagi-san could also be heading for VR if it hits its crowdfunding target by October 10th on Makuake. Planned for the Oculus Quest headset, the VR anime will put the player in Nishikata's shoes, being teased by Takagi and recreating notable scenes from the manga and anime, such as walking home with Takagi. And that's your anime news for the week ending 8th of September 2019.
Bet you're gonna love that.
Yeah, I wonder who's going to pre-order that.
I did consider it, but I think it might be a bit too uncanny for me.
See, whenever he says I considered something, it means he just wants to sort of like dance around the bush as to when
Yeah, you can
it's
just,
going to happen.
You can just see his finger hovering over the buy button.
Yeah, his heart is already in it.
Well,
I can tell. Look
let's-
at that face. He's blushing. Look at
You know what they say about Teasing Master Takagi-san? If you blush, you lose. So I've lost. Clearly.
Honestly, I would lose too. I hate being teased sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I mean-
I don't think I could put up with a whole game full of it.
I kind of like the direction this is going. You know, all fan service-y stuff aside, the idea of animes or anime kind of products coming to a VR service.
Yeah, where you can look around and be involved in it.
That is a fascinating idea.
It's going to be very interesting.
The first one for Spice and Wolf did really well. In regards to the Takagi version, I'm not sure if it will do well. The Spice and Wolf one managed to completely destroy its target within 48 hours.
Doesn't surprise me.
We're 3 days since the launch of Teasing Master Takagi, and last check it was only about 25%. So,
What anime would you put to a VR game?
Neon Genesis. Imagine being in the cockpit.
Oh, that is actually a fair
That'd be
point.
pretty cool.
Yourself,
And-
Coco.
Dragon Ball.
Oh.
Or actually, I think there is a Dragon Ball VR. I think it's to do with
Really?
it was to do with the Kinect controls or something like that. But I don't know if it was like an
Okay.
official one or a fan made one. But I think it was so that you could then be in like Goku or Vegeta or whoever's shoes, and actually your movements would be tracked
What
to
about-
then do the ability.
Yes.
What about being in Bulma's shoes?
Ah.
I see.
Anyway, let's talk about Manga Rock, because this is an interesting situation.
Yeah.
Look, they put out a letter about a day ago.
Yeah,
A
so
day and a bit ago, explaining what was happening, and they were saying that they wanted to keep everything running as normal, except you just couldn't
download the app.
download the app.
It's a bit odd. So essentially, this is all stemmed from about 2 weeks ago. A guy in Japan who does the translation of manga into English as part of his role, and being involved in a company which does a lot of Western press releases.
Yeah.
He did a series, I think it was about 18 tweets, explaining, because Manga Rock's blocked in Japan, to the Japanese audience what Manga Rock was.
Whoa.
And the issue they've been having is that when companies in Japan are taking their product to Western publishers to get it translated, they're often saying, well, the first 3 volumes of this are already translated online. We can't make money from that. So we'll start with volume 4. And so on. Now, that makes no sense.
That doesn't help anyone.
It doesn't help anyone. But I think the issue here is that it goes 2 ways. If people are going to go online to pirate content, which is not available, and they do say that, you should use genuine apps. you can't always use genuine apps. If you're in continental Europe or Australia, there are some apps from Japan which are not available here.
Exactly. And sometimes this is often the case for Australia. It's like we will have the first 3 volumes of something where there are 9 released.
Yeah.
And we cannot get at the other one through genuine means. It sucks.
Yeah.
Now, I feel that this is a digital age issue because if we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't know a whole heap of this stuff exists. Because we know it exists, we want to consume it.
Exactly.
If we can't consume it, we will find a way. It's just filling a need, and that means that I'd suggest that publishing companies need to start taking official translations a lot more seriously and making this content available to people, because to be honest, what I'd love to use an app like Manga Rock for is to preview manga and then be able to go out and buy it, because I mean,
well, that's exactly what I did with Takagi-san, as you can see from the statuette over there.
And like,
I read it on there. I was like, wow, this is amazing, and I went and bought the manga. But here's the issue: if you have a look at how many volumes are released in Japan, there are 9 volumes. In English, there's 3.
Yes, exactly as I was saying. I think I remember something not so long ago about Australia being one of the highest. How do you put it? It's
highest
rated like piracy.
We were the pirates for Game of Thrones.
For Game of Thrones, because it was being released everywhere in the world except for us, where it would come months later.
Well, yeah, because we had to deal with Foxtel, who are very backwards thinking and still believe people do appointment-based TV viewing in the world of Netflix.
No, absolutely. Or we want to pick and choose.
Yeah.
I think that if that can be provided, that would be perfection. If you can just pick and preview and then pick and choose. I think
the logical choice is for publishers to all get on board with a app that is sponsored by the Japanese government, which is available worldwide with no geo-blocking, with adverts inside it, and for them to then hire these people who are doing the fan subs to actually translate it. It can then go up there, the money goes directly to the publishers, and they give a nominal fee for the people translating it, encouraging them to do it.
We don't mind the adverts, we don't mind paying the nominal fee if we are simply getting what it is we want.
And I would also like to point out, this is a conversation that we were having during the week, I think, Kyle, about how Kindles and digital reading is actually dropping in popularity.
Yeah, I mentioned this, didn't I?
This is something that I've felt quite strongly for a long time. I prefer to have something physical in my hands. I prefer to read a book, because reading off a screen is not good for your eyes. It's not good for your brain. It's just so much more natural to read off a book.
So what this is for those tuning in is that there's a statistic every year which comes out which shows how many physical book sales there are compared to digital versions. And up until about 3 years ago, digital was highly on the rise for things like all sorts of e-readers, whether it's Kindle or another brand. This has changed in the last 3 years, where there's been a decline in people purchasing books per title on e-reader versus physical. And it's quite funny because last year, up until now, the most recent results show that bookshops, physical brick-and-mortar bookshops, are actually finally turning a profit again.
That's fantastic. I mean, I can see the convenience of a Kindle, of course. Carrying around like a bunch of heavy books in your school bag. That was my school years. That was my childhood.
Pretty much all of us.
And you know what? You can get away with reading 50 Shades on a Kindle and no one will know.
Oh, are you speaking from experience, Coco?
I still remember reading some of those lines out from it. Turned to a random page at a party and we started reading it. I
had to see what all the fuss was about, and I did. And I don't have to see ever again. We can move on. Let's move on.
Moving on. We do need to talk about Isekai, and we need to start now.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
Anime history.
Anime history. It just sounds so what's
improper.
The word? There's a word for it.
Cultured?
Yeah,
Stylish.
it sounds like
We're
someone
not.
who knows exactly what he's talking about, so I decided to try and copy it, but I am not that person.
I am.
On task, Isekai.
Isekai. So literally, the word Isekai means different world. This is a genre where a normal, in inverted commas, person from Earth gets transported, reincarnated, or trapped in a parallel universe, which is usually a fantasy world.
It's surprisingly not a uniquely Japanese property.
Oh, no. I mean,
No.
we could probably rattle off a list of ones that have been in the West. I want to say Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz.
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's a good
Oh,
one.
Does Tron count?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because you are trapped inside a computer. I think the challenge is finding ones where it's not time travel.
See, because I was just like,
Well,
there's a whole heap of things.
I
it
got
could be.
into a long argument on Reddit with a guy about whether the Divine Comedy by Dante is an isekai.
And what's the outcome of that argument?
A resounding shrug of the shoulders, honestly. But I mean, let's say that it is.
Yes.
If that is the case, then the isekai genre has existed since like the 1300s.
Wow.
I mean, think of all the Celtic fairy tales of, if you stand in a fairy circle, you just get transported away.
Exactly.
It's been going on for years. There's a particular folk tale in Japan about Urashima Taro. There are many as in the case with folk tales, there are many different
Like
renditions?
the Baba Yaga, the varying versions depending on region and
Yeah,
dialect.
Yes,
exactly. Some of these are but the version that I read, none of these versions differ too much, but the version I read is he saves the life of a turtle.
Okay.
He lives on a coastal town. He's a really sort of good guy, and he just gets along with everyone. He saves the life of a turtle. Who's
Good guy turtle son.
Yeah. Then the turtle says that, he wants to thank him. Let's go down to the palace of the Dragon King underwater. So Urashima's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So down they go.
I have concerns about a Dragon King underwater.
But see, like, this underwater world is completely fairy. Yeah, it's not like anything.
So it's not just going diving, it's going into another parallel world underwater.
That's the idea.
I found this a lot with Japanese folklore deities and spirits. They are very, very much like our the fairies of Western world. They're very otherworldly. The rules of reality make less sense. So a dragon having a palace underwater.
Normal.
Exactly.
He's a sea dragon.
So it turns out the turtle was a princess, the daughter of the Sea King. And to say thank you, she says, well, I'd love to marry you and we can live the rest of our lives in this wonderful world. And he's like, sounds great. Sign me up. 3 days later, he remembers that his parents are still up there, and he has and in Japan the duty to the parents is quite important. So he's like, look, I'm really sorry, I just want to go up for the day and check on them. And she's like, it's a bit sad, but that's okay, take this box with you, just don't open it. So anyway, he goes up. Turns out that the 3 days that he's been away have been 300 years.
Whoa.
Everyone is long gone, other people are living in his house. He's just like, I've lost everything. This is terrifying. This is awful. In his great distress and upset, he opens the box, and it turns out the box are the years that he spent just saved up. So he ages very rapidly and passes.
What an ending.
Yeah, and the idea is children, do not be disobedient. That's where it gets you.
I'm sorry, what? Because she said
don't
not
open the box.
See, here's what I'm thinking. Until I knew he died, I was sitting there going, and so begins the tale of Master Roshi, the turtle hermit.
Yes, I was thinking that right at the start.
what?
Saves the life of a turtle, becomes Master Roshi.
Yeah, there might be
Looks old
more
enough.
in that sort of folk tale that's sort of linked to Dragon Ball that we didn't realise. But yeah, that's an early one.
As far as connecting it to the anime era, I went looking. I thought for a second it started with an anime called Genmu Senki Leader, but turns out I was wrong. It is one from 1976, OK no Monsho. It's a manga that stars a girl who is transported back to ancient Egypt. And she discovers a tomb. Sorry, that is to say that is the first proper isekai in the manga genre.
And you know what?
Okay, but she's just teleported back in time. Is it the same world? Like, the question is whether there are actual Egyptian gods, which we know obviously were a fairy tale.
Yes, that's the thing. It's she's transported back in time. She meets pharaohs, and because she has knowledge of the events of ancient Egypt, she gets herself very involved and changes things.
That's what happens in Mark Twain's book.
Yeah?
I was reading about this last night.
was
Connecticut
this-
Yankee in
Yeah.
King Arthur's court.
I remember that.
Yeah, the guy's called Hank.
Yeah, I was told about that in school. It made me laugh.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I
have to
always-
get a hold of this book so
Whenever
I can read
I
it.
hear the name Hank, I just think of the King of the Hill cartoons and them just standing there drinking. So now I'm just imagining a Yankee and 3 knights standing there drinking while the King of the Hill
Yeah.
theme
I'll
plays.
tell you what, Arthur. You're going to give me that sword?
You know what's interesting? Just quickly going back to Urashima Taro, is one of the first anime films in 1918.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, seriously?
So one of the country's earliest anime was a
that's
retelling.
Prior to the Tezuka style change.
Yes.
Wow. That's pretty. On the note of
believe
Tezuka,
so.
completely off topic, there's a new children's cartoon coming out I just saw,
Yeah?
which is Go Astro Boy Go. Completely aimed at like 3 to 5 year olds, but
Oh.
I just thought I'd mention that's
Now,
coming next
now I've
season.
got the Gogeta.
Oh, from Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, returning to topic, the first anime finally got there. This was Aura Battler Dunbine, which aired February 1983. This series stars a normal Tokyo lad named Sho, who's summoned to a medieval fantasy world that possesses insect-like mechanoids. He has to...
That sounds very similar to like the Mars Chronicles and stuff.
Somewhat. This was more action-oriented, but yeah, it turns out that a bunch of the old-school kind of isekais, mostly female protagonists.
Yeah, that
That
does
is true.
actually kind of fit in with some of the films
Yeah.
we've seen too.
It does, doesn't it?
I have a point of discussion here, though, because I think you might both disagree with me on this because you've done more research than me. But do you have to be trapped for it to be an isekai?
I don't think so.
Oh,
Because I mean, you don't have to be trapped. Not in saying like there is no way they can ever get back, but there needs to be the suggestion that you can't go home.
Or at least that it's difficult to.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like the
examples.
Gate.
Gate. Oh,
Gate, they
Gate does
can go
break that
straight
role.
back.
Yeah. Gate.
I
They
mean-
can just literally walk through
Yeah.
the gate from Tokyo into the new world and then walk back.
I mean, the genre is something that you can play around with quite
Hmm.
a lot, isn't it?
I mean, I want to say that he's trapped there by bonds of duty to military service, the main character of Gate.
That is true.
But so there is a sense of separation there. But then you go to later series of Inuyasha, which is like one of the big start points of isekai in the 90s. And in
you
later
can-
series, the main character, that Kagome,
Kagome, yeah.
yeah, she can go back and forth between the world at will by going to a certain place.
oh wow.
Yeah, it's a well.
So
Because I mean, even Weathering with You had elements of discussion of isekai.
And I would like to ask you guys, do you think Sarazanmai is an isekai? In a little way. I mean, it's not
Look,
the whole...
I think the issue with Sarazanmai, and for those who haven't watched it, it was last season's one to do with Kappa. Very strange.
Very.
Very
very
interesting.
unique style.
Worth watching. That
It might
that
not be
ending
everyone's.
theme is stunning.
Oh, look, the music's incredible. But
that's not everyone's
anyway,
cup of matcha.
It's definitely not. It's because they're dealing with fairy tale elements and being in a spiritual world in some sense, that you could say it is, but at the same time they can get back
I want to say
But
that
see-
one's
very
more
quickly,
modern
very
fantasy.
easily.
See,
Yeah,
I have to say, I disagree. I feel like the ability to, like, the fact that you're trapped doesn't have anything to do with it. I feel like an isekai, well, my humble opinion is that an isekai is when you are transported or reincarnated or whatever, you end up in a world that is nothing like not an Earth place.
with the caveat, of course, being that it can't be time travel
Yeah, no, time travel doesn't work.
or another planet,
Yeah.
because that's just
It can't be time travel, no?
no. So time travel is its own genre in of itself. It's a sci-fi subcategory.
Okay.
This is so frustrating, isn't it? Because we've got subcategories within subcategories.
Yeah, I
So
think
was
that's
is
like the...
Dr. Stone But then
So Dr. Stone isn't technically an isekai, it's a modern fantasy because he's been trapped in stone for 3,000 and odd years.
Still Earth, I guess.
And it's still Earth.
That I think is like one of the best things about genres like these. They promote discussion, which is a promotion of new ideas and disagreements and stuff, which, I love this sort of thing.
So for those who want to give an isekai a go, here is a list of some of the popular ones. We've got KonoSuba, we've got ReZero, that's quite dark, so watch out. Sword Art Online is arguably what brought the genre and anime into the Western world.
Sword Art
popularized
Online is
recently.
technically an isekai, especially that first season, because not only are they trapped in another world, and I know we say the trapping isn't part of it, but it is a common theme that's used, but it is another world, and there are real risks. If they die there, they die.
Yeah, there was actually a lot of argument over whether KonoSuba is truly an isekai, considering it is a video game. But technically,
I think it
another
is.
world.
Yeah, it is. And
What,
I feel like...
KonoSuba or Sword Art Online?
Sword Art
Sword
Online.
Art.
Forgive
Yeah.
me.
Yep.
Arifureta is one that's airing this season.
Oh, that's definitely...
Gate was a few seasons ago.
Now, just to clarify, Gate, if you search for just Gate on like Anime Database or anything like that, you're not going to find it. It's called Gate. Thus, the JSDF went there.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Spirited Away.
Yeah.
That obviously goes without saying. Inuyasha we mentioned before. The Rise of the Shield Hero is a good one that's airing currently. Digimon as well.
That counts.
Digimon counts, yeah.
Yep.
Wow, I did not think of that.
Of course, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, and I'm going to argue Sarah Zanmai is a little bit...
I don't feel it. I feel like Sarah Zanmai is definitely more... sits kind of smack bang on the border between that and modern fantasy. Because they don't really leave their world, they just see it in a different light. What was the other one where they can kind of go like into the shadow world of their world to fight demons or something?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think that counts. Well, that's the thing with Sarah Zanmai, because they do seem to...
What was the title of that one, though?
I'm not going to remember. There's quite a few of them
I
like that.
know the one you're talking about. I just can't remember it.
I had another one myself called Magic Knight Rayearth. That comes from around the 80s.
Yeah, I remember actually a friend told me about that when I was in high school in the 90s, and I was like, well, not 90s, 2001?
Yeah, that one was quite popular. That was 3 Tokyo girls being transported to a magical land and becoming mage knights and like battling the forces of evil.
I didn't know it was an isekai. I just thought it was 3 girls in...
Had a bit of a Sailor Moonish vibe to it for the fact that they were like girls who were strong and mighty and all that kind of stuff. But allegedly, a lot of this was inspiration for KonoSuba, which we're talking about later.
Which is actually around the same time was the 12 Kingdoms, which is based on Chinese manuscripts, actually. Like, it's taken a lot of Chinese history and implemented it into a fantasy world, and this girl gets spirited away and becomes the queen of a country.
Wicked.
To clarify what I was saying before, what I think an isekai is about this character or these characters' experience of this other world. So that's why I'd say Sarah Zanmai has elements of isekai. Also Copcraft.
Copcraft is an isekai, because isekai is to go to another world.
But she has come to another world.
A reverse
hers.
isekai, you believe?
Yes.
There's been a few of them lately, actually.
I reckon there's some contention there because the place where she's coming to is semi her world. There are
not really.
See,
it's through
once again, this is a case of whether it sits in modern fantasy or isekai, because they're very closely related.
They are.
Could you call it an isekai if it's a case of worlds colliding more?
Well, I think from Japan's perspective, the idea of isekai literally goes with the title of the Miyazaki film Spirited Away. It's about you being transported somewhere, you the main character. It can't be about other characters being brought to you. That's a reverse isekai. And it can't be about your world being impacted by another world, because that's modern fantasy.
I see.
So that's why, like, Sarah Zanmai has got traits of all 3 of them, which makes it impossible to categorize.
Yeah, that's true.
I really don't want to think of that one as more complex than it is.
But what's really awesome is that isekai is such a palatable genre. Like
It can be, yeah.
I think that there's a strong commercial motive to produce more media of isekai, as it's so globally known in different under different names. For example, I always loved stories about people from our world who find themselves in another world. From a young age, I've just found the
Yeah.
idea fascinating. So I think that can hint at why it's such a popular genre.
And as we mentioned before, it's ever present, not just in Japanese culture, but in
Yeah.
Western as well. It's
I mean, the fact that Mark Twain, of all people, wrote a book about it is crazy.
That guy's a
on,
legend.
on that note, like while Isekai has become quite an overpopulated genre, because of that, a lot of people are trying to make changes to it. So you've got Dark Isekai, and we've got the New Age Isekai, and then you've got the Grungy Isekai, and there's Magic Girl Isekais now, I believe. But what we need to talk about is one that just goes and takes the mickey out of all of them.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
I think I watched that as a kid.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Back Catalogue.
Yes, and we are talking about KonoSuba, God's blessing on this wonderful world, also known as Konosubareshi Sekai ni Shukifuku Oi.
And I like to think that we've been waiting to talk about this one.
Oh, yes. Well, we have
Hey.
Nendroids of them over
Yeah.
there. We have the DVDs and the Blu-rays. We have the desktop backgrounds. the iPad currently has Megumin on her.
Oh my God, it actually does.
So, KonoSuba, which is the short line for it, it began as a web novel back in 2012, and this was just published on a website.
Similar to One Punch Man?
Exactly. Before it was then republished as a light novel series with illustrations in 2013. So the guy got about 6 volumes in online.
Wow.
Volumes, not chapters. Before it then got picked up and they went, we want to publish this, put artwork to it. That series has then been adapted into several manga series, including spin-offs, side stories, prequels, sequels. There are 2 anime seasons, a film on the way. Well,
Yay.
actually just landed. Several video games and a potential... We don't know if it's a 3rd season or a new film or another anime project, but that is meant to be coming out in the coming years. We just know that because they've changed studios, and we'll get to that in a minute, that the new deal was for multiple objects.
Now, we should tell you guys what this is all about.
Yes. Now, after dying a laughable and pathetic death on his way back from buying a video game, high school student Kazuma Sato finds himself sitting before a beautiful but obnoxious goddess named Aqua. She provides him with 2 options: continue on to heaven, where you'll have no body, or...
And apparently no fun.
No fun. Or reincarnate in every gamer's fantasy, a fantasy world. Sounds like a good deal. So he chooses to start a new life, and he's tasked with defeating the Demon King, who is terrorizing the world. But before he goes, he can choose one of any item to aid him in his quest. And after sitting there for a little while, having Aqua insult him,
And
poke
ridicule
fun at him,
him,
ridicule
and
him, he decides to get some revenge and selects Aqua as his one thing to take with him.
Bit harsh.
Kazuma made a mistake. Aqua is useless. And has thus been known very affectionately in the community as the useless goddess. The pair's troubles don't end there. It turns out that living in a fantasy world is very different to how it plays out in a game. They haven't got any starting money or starting gear, and instead of going through a thrilling adventure, the duo must first work to pay for their living expenses, doing jobs around the town.
And we're talking not jobs like kill the giant rats in the sewers or protect this wizard. We're talking
Build a wall.
build a wall, paint,
Plaster it, paint it.
It's- Yeah, they become common labourers in a fantasy world.
The series won the Bookwalkers 2016 Grand Prix Award, and the series itself actually finished runner-up for Best Comedy in the Anime Awards 2016.
And rightly
It
so.
was against Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto, and that's very hard to beat.
Wow.
because for comedy, that is
That-
the most gaggy show I saw in a long time.
Sakamoto won.
Yes, it did.
That's
So,
understandable.
What we need to talk about
Stiff
is
competition.
why this series is so popular. And it's a comedy that reflects how tired the anime community is of the same old generic isekai story. So the style has become so commonplace over the years that a lot of anime viewers have become bored with it. And I can understand why. And KonoSuba breathed fresh life into the genre at a time where the only other alternative for isekai was your dark isekais. This was the more happy version of it. So its success also was backed by a strong international following, which was unusual. So it being very loved by the Western audience, which we, of course, fall into. The biggest criticism, however, it's had was that there was inconsistent character animation throughout the show, i.e. the styles of the characters might slightly change depending on who was drawing them. which had been attributed to more of it being an issue with Studio Dean, who animated the first 2 seasons. It's now moved over to production to JC staff for the current film and any future projects, though the question being whether they'll be any better is unclear at this point. The film being just out at the moment, apparently the animation is just what you would expect for the series, so it might be on point. We'll see.
So basically, it's just like a longer KonoSuba episode.
A big episode, which
Makes me happy.
I kind of like the idea of that. You marathoning KonoSuba, and then there's just like a long extended one for some reason.
Here's the thing, like, people are criticizing the film going, it should really stand out more from the series, and it's like, you've watched the series, right? It's about nothing happening.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean that's one of my main loves about this series is that take any other isekai, it's like they will arrive in this world and they will venture forth, they will discover strange new lands, visit all these cities. These guys don't leave the starter village.
And would you believe that is a criticism that not a lot happens plot-wise? But here's the thing. There's a constant suggestion that something is going to happen, but it takes ages to happen. Now, while this is true, and while it seems like nothing has happened, it's been all slice of life, in 2 seasons they managed to kill 3 demon lords.
I think that's actually the hilarious part of it. The hilarious part of it is that they don't leave the town, so all the bad stuff comes to them and going, we're waiting.
And it's also a commentary on the isekai genre, because there is typically so much exposition.
Yeah, and we've all heard of Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. It's one of my favorite plays. And honestly, the thing that makes KonoSuba so good is the comedy.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a massive quest.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look
they end up on them, but it's
when you look at the characters, you got Kazuma, he's a smart but cliche otaku who is ironically the only one whose behavior is logical.
Yeah, he's smart but kind of talentless. That's sort of his gag.
His reactions often mirror the viewers especially in those WTF moments.
Exactly.
Because he reacts as you would expect someone to react, as opposed to normally Isekai like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. Aqua takes the dumb, clumsy girl stereotype, pushing it to the nth degree.
The useless goddess incarnate.
Megumin covers the Chunibyo cliche. Chunibyo is 6th grade syndrome, and we are going to do a whole episode on that soon. And except that she actually has real power.
Yeah.
She's not a 6-year-old thinking she's got magical powers, a year 6. She's a year 6 who has magical powers.
Yeah, she has the one spell explosion. She uses that and then she is out for the day.
Yeah,
like literally
the
falls
irony
over.
being that she has real power, but she's purposefully chosen to break herself by casting the only spell she can't.
She could have anything else she wanted, but she believes that explosion is the ultimate power.
She just wants to blow stuff up.
And then there's darkness.
I love darkness.
The classic female knight character who can't hit anything and is a masochist.
But she's so purposeful. I love how she's just so proud and like, I will defeat this person. I'll get there. And she really keeps trying, even though she's just got this thing with her where she just enjoys it the more and more pain she's putting.
Like, let's be honest, not everyone enjoys every show. We can't say this is going to be perfect for everyone. To be honest, this might get on your blimmin' nerves. But the thing about this is that while these characters seem generic, they are all well-defined. And the interactions and the back and forth between them, because of how well-defined they are, is what makes the series great.
And indeed, it's the generic quality of them, which if you have watched a lot of other anime, that is actually kind of a defining trait, because they are purposefully there to take the mickey out of other animes in the genre. It's like
most importantly, I think, for KonoSuba is that it has a huge rewatch value. Now, the series film KonoSuba: The Crimson Legend, that's just landed in Japanese cinemas, and it will be getting an international release by Crunchyroll. But they announced this back in, I think, June. And unfortunately, at this point, there's not been a confirmed date for it as of yet. So we will hopefully know more about when we can actually get a chance to watch it, whether that's dubbed or subbed, depending on what Crunchyroll's agreement is. I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll find out. But, I mean, if you haven't caught KonoSuba, I'm pretty sure you can catch it on most streaming services. I can't think of offhand exactly which ones it's on. I know we've got it on Anime Lab in Australia, and I think it might be on Crunchyroll in the US.
Oh. And can I just finish by saying that although Kazuma may seem a little bit abrasive, he's actually really helpful, because when Megumin wants to practice her explosions every day, he goes with her, catches her when she falls, and carries her back to the town.
Yeah, now you might be thinking
Kazuma.
that might lead to a romance. You are sadly mistaken because none of that's happening.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no romance in
You're
here, is there?
expecting plot progression in
Exactly.
this?
You expect things to change. They haven't left the starting village. This is like playing WoW and not leaving the starting area.
Yeah, this is. I think that's its charm. It's less of the actual, action adventure and more slice of life with major comedy.
Good script.
Now, we've talked about something that probably is more interesting to you if you've watched a lot of anime already, but if you haven't, we've got something that will be a great introduction to exactly what Isekai is without anything getting in the way of introduction.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
It's a bathhouse for the spirits.
Totoro came back, Dad. I saw him.
It's Laputa, a floating island.
Miyazaki!
And indeed, this one was a lot of people's introduction to the isekai genre and some to anime in general. This was like one of the big things on the world stage not so long ago. We are, of course, talking about Spirited Away, one of the masterworks of Hayao Miyazaki.
A bathhouse for the spirits, as our intro says.
I wish I could go to that bathhouse.
Me too.
Now, shall I give you guys a story?
Yes, tell me what is Spirited Away about?
Well, this is set in the modern day in... it's a place north of Nagoya.
Mm-hmm.
A young girl and her parents are moving to this new town in the country. Of course, little girl is sad about this, leaving her friends behind, all that kind of stuff. On the way to their new place, they take a wrong turn and end up at an old abandoned theme park deep in the forest. As they decide to explore, they are separated. The parents decide to stop and eat some food that is mysteriously left out in this abandoned place. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bit of a trap.
Bit of a trap, kind of obvious, but it looks really good. But Chihiro goes on ahead to explore. She finds this great, enormous bathhouse, but the sun starts to go down. She is warned by a mysterious stranger that she must leave now, and as she does, that's when the spirits start to come out. There are ghosts and ghouls filling the streets, just starting to appear as light fades. They are all converging on this bathhouse. Chihiro tries to get to her parents to run away, but they've been turned into pigs for their gluttony and eating all the food. Because
the humans can't normally ingest the quality of the food that the spirits eat.
That's actually another thing. That, again, crosses over the whole thing about Japanese folklore and stuff being kind of somewhat similar to, like, the Western idea of fairies. Fairies have that same thing. If you eat fairy food, you can't eat anything else. But so she is saved by that stranger, a mysterious young man named Haku, who explains that this place is a resort for the spirits, a place where they can relax after spending time in the human realm. And the only chance she has to save her parents is to get a job at this place under the watchful gaze of the greedy manageress, Yubaba.
Which sounds a lot like Baba Yaga. Now, Spirited Away was huge when it came out.
Massive.
And when it came out, it was a massive success. It did really well, both domestically in Japan and the worldwide. I'm pretty sure it got nominated for an Oscar, if I remember correctly.
It absolutely did.
Now, this was the film that kind of introduced the idea of a Western audience learning about Japanese culture and, the stories and fairy tales from Japan through animation. And it only recently, and I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago, it recently opened in China. It had never been aired there. They did Totoro last year. They did China this year.
Oh, no, wait, just confirming. I was just looking this up while you were saying that. It did win the 2003 Oscar.
Oh, there you go. Mm-hmm. So first one to win an Oscar. But yeah, opened in China. And before that, it looked like... not Your Name, but Weathering With You was about to take over as the top Japanese anime film of all time. Mm-hmm. And then they opened Spirited Away in China, and it just blitzed.
And it just knocked it out the park.
It really did. Now, I'm a big fan of Spirited Away, and I mean, like, for starters, we've got, Hayao Miyazaki creating something incredible again. You've then got Joe Hisashi again doing amazing music. The soundtrack for this has been sampled, remixed, remastered by hundreds, if not thousands of artists. And it's beautiful, and it's so simple.
And would you like to know something very hilarious about this?
Yes.
This Miyazaki very nearly retired just before making this movie.
Well, I mean, he's retired and come back several times now.
Yeah, it's his thing. It's just like, okay, I'm bored. I'm going back to work.
Well, I've always said, like, if I had to retire and stop doing what I do, I would get very bored very quickly.
Yeah, you're the kind of guy who always has to have a project.
I've always got to have a project. I've always got to be working on something and building something and working towards something.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be really funny if I'm still talking about anime and I'm like 95. I'd be like, I remember in my day I watched Spirited Away and it's a timeless classic you children should watch.
The first time I saw it was in 2004 in France.
Oh, wow. Was that French dub?
Yes.
Oh.
So I didn't understand a lot of it, but it was just beautiful.
You would have understood more than we did. You can at least speak some French.
But yeah, so he was about to retire when he was inspired by seeing his friend's very, very sullen 10-year-old daughter and how she was acting and behaving. And he studied the way she behaved and moved and stuff like that. And then he sort of got an idea for something he wanted to do, because he started to do some research about what children their age were reading. And he looked at a couple of their magazines. I think they are...
You showed me these, didn't you?
Yes, Nagayoshi and Ribbon. They are two magazines centered around that age group. And Coco, what would be your first impression of them?
Fluffy.
Fluffy? Very
fluffy, sugary, will rot your teeth.
Are we talking about that
sparkles,
manga and
pink.
anime that was banned in France?
No, but
I would
honestly,
say
that was
along the
similar.
same vein. Basically, this was being offered to them, and it was basically just about love and crushes, and he feared that was kind of the only thing being offered to them.
Well, because at the time, especially in Western media, I don't know about Japan, but it was all about, it was the male powerhouses. It wasn't anything like we have now where you actually get to see, powerful women or well-written women in the stories. It was always women were a side character back then.
And so he felt that this was not what they held dear in their lives as well. This wasn't all that they focused on. So he wanted to have something where they were the heroines, where they were not just the central focus, but in command of their own destinies.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, no, I like that. And if you have a look at all of Miyazaki's work, he has a lot of strong female characters.
Oh, constantly. The one he made just before that was Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, and wow.
Oof. You guys have watched that one?
Yes.
I haven't seen it yet.
have. Coco hasn't.
Oh, we may have to sit down later tonight.
We might have to do
We
that,
can do
yes.
that.
Now, I think the other thing to bear in mind with Spirited Away is that while this was the first one that I guess a lot of Western audiences were introduced to that was an animated feature, it's because it became so widespread, this actually spurred on a whole new generation of anime viewers and lovers. It literally built a new otaku generation, basically starting the year it came out.
It was a breathtaking kind of a life-changing spectacle, to be certain. And, I actually found out something else hilarious about this. So, writing-wise, story-wise, it's amazing, right? This thing went into production without a script.
Wait, whoa. They started writing it without drawing it without a script?
Well, to be clear, Hayao Miyazaki went into drawing it without a script because this is what he does. He will draw up these storyboards and such.
Beautiful.
He wrote, directed, and drew up the storyboards for the movie. Many directors have claimed that he essentially writes his movies while drawing.
That sounds like a very organic and natural way to do it.
Oh, it's...
I can imagine it being difficult. You know how I write with... I want to plan out everything I want to do before I start writing a story.
Oh, yeah,
Sounds like a really pure way of going about it.
Because
I like that.
even he doesn't know where the story is. He says that the stories write themselves. He's sort of just...
He's the conduit.
He's the guy holding the pen.
I wonder if that's ever run him into trouble when he's gone over time or under time.
Well, actually, I think I found something which suggests that it has, and it's almost sad in a way.
Okay.
So the song that plays at the end, which is Itsumo Nando Demo, or Always With Me, it's a very, very pleasant kind of a tune. That wasn't intended for this movie.
No?
That was intended for a film that he never made. It was called Rin and the Chimney Painter.
Rin and the Chimney...
Okay.
Why does that sound familiar?
Your guess is as good as mine, but that's the thing.
Perhaps it has yet to be made.
It perhaps he put it to the studio. It was rejected. This was just one idea that he had. I looked everywhere online for any kind of detail about the plot, any kind of concept art or anything like that, and I couldn't find anything.
I wonder if it's because he went to them and said, "I'll just make it up as I go along."
But yeah, this raised like a kind of a bittersweet question for me: is are there any other films that could have been by Miyazaki that we simply haven't seen, that we don't know?
I bet you there's hundreds. I bet you he's got literally piles of book in his studio, just full of ideas.
And that kind of hit kind of close to home to me because that happened recently with an author that I loved as a child, one Terry Pratchett.
Yeah.
His books
stuff.
were my childhood. And recently a notebook of a bunch of his unused ideas came out, and it kind of broke my heart. All these stories which I could have had, but also wouldn't have.
But I mean, sometimes it's better to think of what could be, rather than getting everything you want. I mean, we have seen cases where they've written... Douglas Adams is a prime example. Like, he had ideas for the next book in the Hitchhiker's Guide series, and then there were family members and friends who helped write this book, and apparently it just felt a bit off. And I think it's better to just leave them as ideas there that you can at least appreciate, go, wow, that would have been cool.
But it's thankfully through Spirited Away that at least a little bit of these small ideas, and perhaps it's present in other Miyazaki films, I don't know yet, I kind of want to do more research, that these other unmade things live on in little ways.
Now, something important to note about pretty much everything that comes out of Studio Ghibli, to my knowledge, Studio Ghibli still haven't signed a digital rights agreement with any streaming service, so you can't actually find their films on any streaming platforms. Your best bet is going to be, and I can't believe I'm saying this, go to your local video store or buy it online through a delivery service who can send out the DVD to you.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy is called the Disney of the East, probably, like, not in Japan, but
he's got his own vault.
Yeah.
Imagine if they opened their own streaming service.
To be honest, I think anywhere, the only thing that would happen if they wanted to go streaming is they'd immediately go with Disney Plus. It's guaranteed revenue, and they've got a strong relationship with Disney already.
And they are somewhat signed on to...
Yeah, well, Disney organised most of their dubs.
Yeah.
So, which on that note, Spirited Away's dub, also very, very good. I think we mentioned with Nausicaa, the cast was incredible. It's the same as Spirited Away.
There are little bits in the dub which are also added in. The first time Chihiro sees a bathhouse, she goes, "Oh, there's a bathhouse." That's not in the Japanese release because the Japanese know what a bathhouse looks like. It's sort of part of the ingrained culture, but for Western audiences, little bits like that were just sort of added in.
Yeah, no, which is great.
It's helpful.
Now that we've covered all that, we've run out of time.
Oh.
We've got to go on.
Ba-bow.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
Well, thank you for joining us, but unfortunately that's all the time we have for this episode. Next episode, the summer season is winding up. And that means the shows are heading for their big finales, and we'll be taking a look at what has hit the mark and what has sorely missed. I can think of one very obvious show which comes to mind, which we haven't talked about this episode, and we will mention next episode. But we will be having a look at that through all of next episode in 2 weeks' time.
And as usual, we'll be featuring some of the amazing covers for this season's opening themes as part of the show. So make sure you tune in to hear some great music by great artists.
We've had some really good ones in the past.
Don't forget to head over to our Facebook page for breaking anime news and videos. And smash that like button. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, of course you did. All right, you've been listening to Kawaii-Fi Radio. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with season in review and more Kawaii-Fi Quest. Kenny might even finish his attack between now and then.
Don't hold your breath.
Unlikely.
Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, watch some anime. Goodbye.
Cheers.